Friday, August 19, 1977, Circleville, Ohio. A husband leaves his house after a phone call, angry enough to take his handgun. Minutes later, his pickup hits a tree on a familiar road. The coroner rules it an accident. In the months before and the years after, anonymous letters arrive across the county, filled with threats and intimate details. Who wrote to Circleville? And why did the writing not stop when a man went to prison? Before we start, if you've lived with this story, I'd like you to share the single clue that still matters most to you. Please keep people safe. Do not name private individuals or pass along unverified accusations. Mary Gillespie was a school bus driver, a mother, and part of the rhythm of small-town life. In the summer of 1976, letters began arriving at her home, postmarked from Columbus, alleging an affair with her district's superintendent, Gordon Massey, and warning her to stop. Her husband, Ron, soon received his own letter, demanding he force the truth into the open. The writer said they watched the house and knew the children. That threat landed as intended. Circleville sits about 25 miles, 40 kilometers, south of Columbus. It's flat farmland and two-lane roads, the famous water tower painted like a pumpkin, and school routes looping past fields to Monroe Elementary. Along one such route, at Scioto Darby Road and 5 Points Pike, west of town, Mary later found a sign that would change the case. Geography matters here. The roads, the postmarks, the distance to the big city's sorting machines. The timeline begins in 1976 with letters to Mary and then to Ron, verified by major outlets and the Unsolved Mysteries case file. Allegations of an affair followed. Mary later acknowledged a relationship with Massey, but said it began after the letters started. A key disputed point, recorded by reporters at the time. On Friday, August 19, 1977, a call came to the Gillespie home. Family members later said Ron believed he recognized the caller's voice. He left with his gun. Within minutes, his truck crashed, and he died at the scene. Officials recorded a blood alcohol level of 16 and ruled the death an accident. Some relatives and locals disagreed and believed foul play should have been pursued. Both the BAC figure and the accident ruling are part of the public record. The murder claim is allegation only. What followed is verified. The letters widened. Then the writer escalated to roadside signs. Crude boards staked into fences along Mary's bus route, some naming her young daughter. On Monday, February 7, 1983, during an afternoon turn between school pickups, Mary stopped to remove one sign. It was tied to a box. Inside, deputies later found a crude device rigged to fire a .25 caliber pistol when the sign was yanked, an apparent booby trap that failed. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation recovered a filed-off serial number and traced the gun to Paul Freshour, Mary's brother-in-law by marriage. What was found versus what was not is stark. Investigators had the gun, a location along a public fence line, a cluster of threatening letters, and handwriting comparisons offered by document examiners. They also documented, via work records, that Freshour was off on the day the sign appeared. What they did not have, according to CBS's 2024 review, was physical evidence tying him to the gun rig or the device. No fingerprints and no eyewitness who could place him at the fence. He was never charged with writing the letters, though selected letters were used in court. Sightings complicate the picture. Another bus driver reported a yellow El Camino and a man, unlike Freshour, standing by the intersection that day, pretending to urinate. This account remains unconfirmed, and the man was never identified. Confirmed, however, are the Columbus postmarks on many letters, a consistent feature across years of mail. The investigation matured in phases. On Friday, March 4, 1983, a Pickaway County grand jury indicted Paul Freshour for attempted murder with a firearm specification. His trial opened in October. On Friday, October 28, 1983, jurors returned a guilty verdict. On Monday, October 31, 1983, He received a sentence of 7 to 25 years. He was not tried for the letters themselves. 39 were admitted to show pattern. Freshour served approximately 10 years and was paroled in 1994. During his incarceration, this is undisputed, the letters continued, even after a warden put him in solitary and restricted writing materials. One taunting letter was mailed to Freshour himself. Public scrutiny rose again in December 1993, when the TV show Unsolved Mysteries prepared a segment and received a postcard warning them to forget Circleville, Ohio. If you come to Ohio, you El Sickos will pay. Signed, the Circleville writer. Decades later, on Wednesday, August 25, 2021, CBS's 48 Hours aired a re-examination. A former FBI profiler told the program the letter writer's psychology did not match Freshour and suggested the booby trap could have been set by someone else. A forensic document examiner compared a sample of 49 letters and concluded, under oath if asked, that one person wrote them, and that person was Freshour. Those opinions conflict. They are not court findings. Now the theories, clearly theories, not accusations. Theory 1. Paul Freshour authored the letters and set the trap. Supporters cite the traced gun, the day off work, and document examiner testimony at trial and in later media reviews. The pushback is equally blunt. Letters postmarked from elsewhere continued while he was monitored in prison, and prosecutors lacked physical evidence connecting him to the device. The unresolved question is whether an accomplice existed or whether post-conviction letters came from a copycat. Theory 2. A second person, possibly someone within Mary and Ron's circle, wrote or continued the letters and set, or later exploited, the booby trap. People who favor this point to the yellow El Camino sighting and to intimate knowledge in the letters that implies proximity. The limits are obvious. No charges, no named, indicted suspect, and decades of rumors that help no one. The key question is whether preserved envelopes, stamps, or adhesives carry recoverable DNA that could exclude or include potential authors. Theory 3. An early suspect, such as a co-worker, neighbor, or disgruntled bus driver, began the campaign and others piled on, turning a vendetta into a town-wide echo. It explains shifting tone and scope, and the letter's obsession with public shaming. Weaknesses. Postmarks and phrasing patterns show consistency over years, and there's no verified handoff. The test ahead would be comprehensive linguistic profiling against known writings of any candidate, if those archives still exist. The phone call to the Gillespie home on Friday, August 19, 1977, after which Ron left with his handgun, is a fixed point. If phone records survive, the originating number matters. The coroner's accident ruling and the 16 BAC are official findings. A fired round from Ron's gun was reported, but the bullet was never recovered, leaving a gap only evidence can fill. Columbus postmarks tie much of the mail to processing centers about 25-30 miles north, a logistical detail consistent across years. The booby trap recovered on Monday, February 7, 1983, at Scioto Darby Road and 5 Points Pike, Oimantron Sinsanentuit trained, with a .25 caliber pistol, is a concrete piece of evidence. The partial serial number recovery by state labs links to ownership. Work and family records that place. Paul Freshour, off duty that day, and his later, claimed the gun had gone missing, are points of tension requiring corroboration beyond testimony. The lack of physical evidence, no fingerprints or directu. Trace tying Freshour to the device was noted at trial and in later reviews. It cuts both ways in assessing reasonable doubt. 60, a reported yellow El Camino and an unidentified man at the scene remain unaccounted for. Locating that vehicle's historical registrations in the county would be a targeted archival task. 39 letters were admitted at trial for pattern, but no letter-writing charge was brought. That separation between an attempted murder case and a harassment campaign still shapes perceptions. A 1993 postcard threatening unsolved mysteries shows the writer, or an imitator, was still watching media, attention and willing to interfere. 10. The letters continuing during fresh hours incarceration, even during solitary, remain the single most disputed fact when weighing sole actor versus multiple actor. Theories. The human cost sits at the center. A husband died on a summer night. A mother drove her route under public taunts about her child. Neighbors learned to scan their mail before they read it. Some built a practice of answering rumors with daylight. Walks to the sheriff's office, meetings with school leaders, a refusal to repeat anonymous claims. The USPS still investigates threatening mail. People facing harassment can document, preserve envelopes, and report to local law enforcement and postal inspectors for assessment. As of Friday, October 17, 2025, no one has been charged with writing the Circleville letters. Pickaway County authorities have long considered the letter-writing portion closed. Though the question of authorship continues to be debated in public forums and on national TV, there have been no official announcements of new forensic testing since CBS's coverage was updated on Sunday, May 26, 2024. If credible new information emerges, local investigators or state authorities would have discretion to review it. The terror in Circleville was intimate, personal, and relentlessly present. But fear can also be faceless and absolute, emerging not from a known threat in your community, but from the complete unknown. To understand that difference, we travel from the heartland of Ohio to the middle of the Caribbean Sea, and the baffling case of a passenger who vanished without a trace, Amy Lynn Bradley. Tuesday, 24th March 1998, just after 6 a.m., somewhere between Aruba and Curacao in the warm, flat Caribbean Sea. A father stepped onto a cruise ship balcony to wake his 23-year-old daughter for the day's port call. Minutes earlier, she'd been dozing on a deck chair. Now the chair was empty, the sliding door ajar, and her cigarettes were gone. In that tight window between 5:30 and 6 a.m., something happened. What? Before we retrace the morning, here's a simple ask. If you know this case, share the single clue that still matters most. Please don't name private individuals or post unverified allegations. Stick to facts or first-hand details you're willing to give law enforcement. Amy Lynn Bradley grew up in Virginia, a strong swimmer and former college basketball player who had recently graduated from Longwood University and was mapping out her next steps. She was close with her parents, Ron and Iva, and her younger brother, Brad. The cruise was a family treat that began on Saturday, 23rd. Ordered March 1998, out of San Juan. It was meant to be easy days, bright photos, and a week together before real life resumed. To place us on the map, the ship, Royal Caribbean's Rhapsody of the Seas, sailed a southern Caribbean loop, from Puerto Rico down to Aruba, and on toward Curacao. Aruba and Curacao sit only about 70-75 miles apart, 113-120 kilometers, a short hop across the leeward edge of the sea. Curaçao's cruise piers lie at the mouth of St. Anna Bay, steps from Willemstad's pastel waterfront, and the narrow roads where taxis idle. That proximity matters because any disembarkation, planned or not, would funnel people through a small, visible space. Now, the timeline in local time. Saturday, 21st. Through March 1998, the Rhapsody departed San Juan. Monday, 23rd March. She left Oranjestad, Aruba, after a day in port, bound for Curacao. After midnight into Tuesday, 24th March, Amy and Brad danced in the ship's nightclub. Door lock records show Amy returned to the family cabin at about 3:40 a.m. Around 5:30 a.m., Ron looked out and saw her sleeping on the balcony. At roughly 6 a.m., she was gone. The FBI has long said the ship was still en route to Curaçao during the early morning hours. Some press accounts say the vessel was already docking. The federal timeline carries more weight, but that discrepancy is one of many that cloud the morning. What followed between about 6:00 and 9:00 a.m. is the second crucial window. Ron searched decks, thinking Amy might be taking sunrise photos. By late morning, reports vary, the crew conducted a shipboard search while passengers moved toward a normal port day in Curaçao. The family has said announcements were delayed and disembarkation went ahead. Royal Caribbean has said public areas and cabins were checked. By early afternoon, the Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard began a wide area search that would stretch 4 days, ending Friday, 27th of March 1998, with no trace. Assets included 3 helicopters and a radar-equipped aircraft scanning currents and shorelines between Aruba and Curaçao. What was found versus what was not. In the cabin, Amy's shoes and clothes from the night, but her lighter and cigarettes were missing. Small items, easy to pocket if she stepped out. There was no confirmed CCTV capture of her movements after dawn, and no verified record of her keycard being used to formally disembark, though that last point is based on press reporting rather than a public police statement. There was no body at sea, no medical log entry of a rescue, and no forensic evidence on deck tying to an overboard event. Family accounts have long held that the formal night photographs on display later could not be found, feeding fears of targeted interest. But that remains an allegation rather than an established fact. Sightings came next, and they split into 2 groups. Confirmed sightings, those corroborated by evidence, do not exist in this case. Unconfirmed but oft-reported accounts include an April 1998 taxi driver in Willemstad who told the family he saw a young woman matching Amy sprinting toward the phone area as the ship docked that morning. A Canadian diver in August 1998 who believed he saw her on a Curaçao beach with 2 men, noting tattoos that matched. A U.S. Navy petty officer in January 1999 who said a woman in a Curaçao brothel told him she was Amy and begged for help. And, in 2005, anonymous photographs from an adult website labeled Jazz that resembled an older Amy. Each of these generated leads. None produced proof. Even the 2005 images split opinion. Some outlets say federal analysis found a match, while FBI officials quoted elsewhere have avoided that conclusion, noting the technical limits of the time. The investigation matured in phases. From Tuesday, 24th of March, through Friday, 27th March 1998, the Coast Guard search saturated the likely drift zones with air assets. Royal Caribbean chartered a vessel to continue looking. The FBI opened a case, interviewed crew and witnesses, and publicized a reward that, as of today, is listed at up to $25,000. In 2002, a con man who took $210,000 from the family by inventing false rescue intelligence pleaded guilty to mail fraud. Years later came major media appeals, America's Most Wanted, Dr. Phil, and digitization of tips, followed on Wednesday, 16th of July 2025, by a Netflix docuseries that prompted a new wave of information. Recent reporting in mid-October 2025 mentions 3 significant new leads identified by producers and a bartender who allegedly cried, "Señorita kidnapped," on the night in question, claims now being passed to authorities for assessment. Theory 1. An accidental fall overboard before dawn. Supporters note the narrow window, an open balcony, and the sea's ability to erase. Pushback is clear. Amy was a strong swimmer and no body, clothing, or witness report of a fall ever surfaced, despite a 4-day aerial search and coastal checks. Questions that would move this forward include the precise wind, current, and drift modeling at 5:30, 6 a.m., and whether any deck wash logs or overboard alarms existed and were preserved. Theory 2. Voluntary disembarkation to start anew or meet someone ashore. It explains the cigarettes, the calm balcony exit, and some later accounts that place her on land. The weak points are the lack of a verified card scan, passport, or money movement, and the immediate urgency of her family's search in a confined port zone. What would help is definitive access control, data from the gangway that morning, and any port security notes naming a matching young woman between 6:00 and 9:00 a.m. Theory 3. Abduction and trafficking. This frames the taxi driver, diver, and Navy witness, along with the 2005 photographs, as fragments of a larger crime. Critics point out the absence of hard evidence, the possibility of mistaken identity, and the risk of narrative drift over decades. Concrete steps here would include modern facial comparison work on original resolution images, if available. Renewed outreach to Curaçao witnesses from 1998-1999 and structured re-interviews of any crew or passengers whose statements conflict on times. The electronic door lock log at about 3:40 a.m. on Tuesday, 24 March 1998, confirming Amy's return to the cabin after the nightclub. Ron Bradley's 5:30 a.m. sighting of his daughter asleep on the balcony and her absence by roughly 6 a.m., a 30-minute window that governs everything else. Small items missing. Lighter, cigarettes, versus shoes and clothes left behind. Consistent with a brief step out rather than full departure. People.com 4. Whether the ship was still en route or already docking around dawn. The FBI says en route, while some outlets say docked. Discrepancy that affects who Amy could have met. Timing of ship-wide announcements and the decision to allow disembarkation in Curaçao despite a missing passenger. Those minutes and hours matter. The 4-day Dutch Caribbean Coast Guard search ending. Friday, 27th of March 1998, with helicopters and a radar plane and no at-sea finds. Setter, alleged dawn-hour interactions with a ship's musician, who was interviewed by the FBI and not charged. Claims exist, denials exist, evidence is thin. The April-August 1998 Curaçao accounts. Taxi driver near the pier. A diver who noticed distinctive tattoos on a beach. Never corroborated, never fully dismissed. The January 1999 Navy Petty Officer's brothel account. Raised years later. The site reportedly burned before agents could document it. The 2005 Jasios photographs. Press reports claim an FBI analysis pointed to Amy, while other officials have publicly hedged, leaving a testable artifact if originals can be found. There is a human cost in every line of this file. In 2002, a fraudster exploited the Bradleys' hope and went to prison for it, a detail that shows how vulnerability widens as time drags on. In 2010, 12 years to the day, Amy was declared legally dead, a procedural step that did not end the search or the grief. Over the years, the family has kept a tip line, websites, and appeals going, attending interviews and renewals with a kind of stubborn, quiet stamina that often defines the families of the missing. Amy Bradley's story is a mystery swallowed by the immense, empty horizon of the sea. But some terrors are not defined by their vastness, but by their intimacy. They don't happen in the middle of nowhere, but in the places people go to feel safe, to be alone together. Our next case trades the open ocean for the shadowy lovers' lanes of the Italian countryside, where a killer stalked couples for nearly 2 decades. He was known only as the Monster of Florence. Sunday, 8th of September, 1985, late morning, Scopeti Woods, near San Casciano in Val di Pesa, south of Florence. A small blue tent sits half-collapsed among the pines. 2 French holidaymakers have not checked out. By early afternoon, searchers find what the killer left behind, and within a day, prosecutors receive an envelope that proves the murderer is watching them. Who hunted couples in Tuscany for 17 years, and why? Before we trace the case, I'd like you to share the single clue that still matters most. A precise tip about a .22 caliber Beretta pistol and Winchester cartridges marked with an H on the base. Ammo that tied the murders together. Please don't name private individuals or post unverified allegations. If what you know is sensitive, contact local authorities first. The victims deserve to be seen as more than a pattern. In the summer of 1984, shop assistant Pia Gilda Rontini, 18, and student Claudio Stefanacci, 21, parked off a country road near Vicchio after a day that should have been ordinary. They never came home. A year later, in the Scopetti campsite, 36-year-old Nadine Morio, on holiday from eastern France with her partner, 25-year-old musician Jean-Michel Kravechvili, settled into a borrowed tent. They planned a short break, a few photographs, a return to work. Families waited for calls that never came. Crime Plus Investigation UK TV channel. The geography is intimate and deceptive. Vineyards and low forest, side roads slipping away from the main arteries. Scandicci sits about 5 kilometers (3.1 miles) southwest of Florence. Calenzano lies roughly 15 kilometers to 9.29, 3.3 miles to the northwest. Vicchio is about 25-30 kilometers, 15 to 19 miles northeast through the Mugello. San Casciano, gateway to the last crime scene, is about 19 kilometers, 11.8 miles to the south. The distances are short enough for one driver to range widely, close enough that locals know which dirt tracks lead to quiet clearings. Now the timeline, in local time, moving from verified facts to places where accounts diverge. Saturday, 24th August 1968. Signa, west of Florence. Barbara Loci and Antonio Lobianco are shot in a parked car while Loci's 6-year-old son sleeps in the back. Police later convict Loci's husband, Stefano Mele, for that double murder. Years later, ballistics link the 1968 gun to the later crimes, a connection that reopens old doubts. Saturday, 14th of September 1974. A lover's lane near Borgo San Lorenzo. A young couple is killed in their car. Saturday, 6th June 1981. Scandicci. Then Friday, 23rd of October 1981. Calenzano. Saturday, 19th of June 1982. Montespertoli. Friday, 9th of September 1983. Near Galuzzo. Sunday, 29th of July 1984. Vicchio. And Sunday, 8th September 1985, Scopetti. Across these scenes, a .22 pistol and the same make of ammunition recur. This portion verified through police and court records, cited widely by major outlets. Disputes persist over whether the 1968 murders belong inside the series. The stronger weight of later forensic summaries says the weapon matches, though early case handling was imperfect and remains a point of debate. What was found, again and again, was a signature without a name. Spent .22 cartridge cases with Winchester H head stamps lay near cars, or in Scopetti, near a tent. Several scenes showed post-mortem knife injuries to the female victim. In the final case, a letter arrived on Monday, 9th of September 1985, addressed to Deputy Prosecutor Silvia Della Monica, enclosing a piece of the victim's breast, an act widely reported by Italian and international outlets. What was not found? The handgun itself. Any reliable CCTV or mobile data? It was the pre-digital era, and a single, enduring DNA profile that could settle authorship across all years. Sightings followed 2 tracks, confirmed because police acted on them at the time. In June 1981, paramedic Enzo Spalletti was arrested after talking publicly about the Scandicci murders before those details were widely known. He was later released when another double murder occurred that October, clearing him of involvement. Unconfirmed, in statements and press reports, a peeping driver seen near prior sites, an unknown figure loitering by car parks, the sense that someone studied the lanes and returned. The latter remain contested and cannot be verified beyond contemporary reporting. As the investigation matured, it shifted in phases. In the early 1990s, Florence prosecutors built a circumstantial case against farmer Pietro Pacciani. On Tuesday, 1st November 1994, a Florence court convicted him in the first instance for 7 double murders. On Monday, 13th November 1995, the appeal opened. On Wednesday, 13th of February 1996, he was acquitted and released, with the appellate court criticizing evidential gaps. In December 1996, Italy's Supreme Court annulled that acquittal and ordered a new appeal. But Pacciani died on Sunday, 22nd February 1998, before he could be retried. Meanwhile, 2 acquaintances, postman Mario Vanni and laborer Giancarlo Lotti, were tried for involvement in 4 of the later double murders. Their convictions became final in 2000. Vanni died in April 2009. Lotti died earlier, on Saturday, 30th of March 2002. Years on, families pressed for renewed scrutiny. On Friday, 25th of March 2022, relatives of victims formally asked prosecutors to re-examine the case, citing overlooked leads and DNA on anonymous letters. On Friday, 2nd of August 2024, AFP and CBS reported that newly identified DNA on bullets found in 2015 matched similar ammunition from scenes in 1983 and 1984. Experts cautioned about contamination and that the DNA did not match victims nor the men convicted. On Monday, 13th of January 2025, lawyers for Vanni's family filed a request to review his life sentence, arguing that entomological findings could shift the Scopiti time of death by 2 days, clashing with key testimony. The Genoa Appeals Court must assess that claim. Theory 1. A single local offender. Supporters point to the ballistic consistency, the offender's knowledge of quiet turnoffs, and the repeated weekend and late summer pattern, often near a new moon. The limits, gaps between crimes, a tent not a car in 1985, and questions about whether one person alone controlled scenes for so long. If true, the unresolved piece is the weapon. Finding the Beretta would test the lone killer model against all incidents. Theory 2. A small group acting together or in loose relay. This grew from Lotti's statements and the convictions of Lotti and Vanni for 4 later crimes, plus strands of testimony about watchers and follow cars. The pushback. Lotti's accounts changed. Defense lawyers and journalists flagged inconsistencies, and some early crimes predated any alleged conspiracy. Progress would require fresh, scene-specific forensic links between named participants and physical evidence beyond contested statements. Theory 3. Murders commissioned for esoteric or exploitative motives. Advocates cite the 1985 mailing and mutilations as ritual signifiers. Critics note an absence of hard proof tying alleged instigators to scenes or tools. Courts acquitted purported commissioners. This theory moves only if new. Verifiable provenance emerges for the 1985 envelope. Paper, glue, stamped DNA, or a chain of custody to a living suspect. The ballistic fingerprint, .22 caliber, Beretta series pistol, and Winchester H head-stamped cartridges, appears across the series and anchors linkage. The gun itself has never surfaced in any amnesty, estate, or licensed collection. Recovering it would be transformative. The 1985 Scopetti letter, addressed to Deputy Prosecutor Silvia Della Monica and enclosing human tissue, likely bears trace evidence on envelope, adhesive, and cuttings that modern labs can still mine. New DNA reported in 2024 on bullets stored from the 1985 case, with matches to ammunition tied to 1983 and 1984, suggests handling by the same unknown person. Contamination remains a risk that must be ruled out by strict lab audits. The 1968 Cigna murders link by weapon, not by charged perpetrator, clarifying that ballistic trail, what was examined, when, and by whom, still matters. Time of death at Skopati is contested. Precise entomological and environmental reanalysis could confirm whether the killings occurred on Friday, 6th of September, or Sunday, 8th of September, 1985, reshaping the credibility of witness timelines. LA. Republica 7. Verified sightings versus barroom talk in 1981, Spalletti's premature statements and car location records, can be rechecked against any preserved call logs, duty rosters, or fuel receipts. Geography clusters around short drives from Florence. Scandici, Calenzano, San Casciano, Vicchio, hinting at an offender living or working within about 30 kilometers, 18.6 miles, comfortable on back roads. Vehicle repositioning at some scenes. Doors ajar, lights off, could hold latent patterning about approach and exit routes. Mapping those against period roadworks and weekend patrols may eliminate or prioritize suspects. 10. Custody chains for stored evidence. Bullets, envelopes, clothing need modern, transparent documentation. Gaps will either explain anomalies or expose new, probative traces. The human cost lives in the afters, parents waiting up, siblings who avoided country roads for years, couples who chose brighter streets and busier car parks. Families have organized legal petitions, fronted press appeals, and asked courts to reopen lines of inquiry, especially in 2022 and again in 2025. The case changed how many in Tuscany courted and traveled at night. It also shaped how Italian policing talks about serial crimes and victim support. As of Friday, 17th of October 2025, the Monster of Florence file remains a live concern for families and periodic reviews by prosecutors. There is no official closure consolidating all 8 double murders under a single named perpetrator. The reported 2024 DNA finding has not yet yielded a public identification, and the 2025 request to review Vanni's conviction is pending before the Genoa Appeals Court. Authorities continue to assess new, credible information. Families continue to ask for a clean, evidence-led accounting. We end where the case began, with the people who loved, worked, studied, and took a drive or pitched a tent on a warm night. May their memory guide whatever clarity still lies ahead, and may the next lead honor their names more than their killers.